Welcome to the Navigating Disruption podcast. I'm your host, Shaquille Barmel. I'm the CEO of Ocean Blue Strategic and partner with the Summit Group. I'm a coach, consultant, and speaker, and I help leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals make an impact through improved performance. In this podcast, I share insights and interviews with interesting leaders to define practical lessons that you can use to make an impact in the face of uncertainty. We are proud to be brought to you by the Summit Group. We help companies increase revenue and deepen customer relationships by moving from sales excellence to authentic business relevance through engaging learning experiences. A bottle of shampoo, a can of potato chips, a candid question from a student in Scandinavia. They all have one thing in common. They were influential in the career and purpose of Saleem Ahamed, Chief Marketing Officer of the game-changing Plastic Bank. Plastic Bank transforms ocean plastic into consumer goods, solving an environmental problem while at the same time improving livelihoods in some of the most difficult parts of the world. Listen in to this conversation to hear this incredible story and get a deeper understanding about connecting childhood experiences into purpose-driven, world-changing work. Enjoy the conversation. Saleem, how are you today?
Doing great, Shaquille. Great to see you.
Really good to see you. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation for a little while, so I'm really glad that we're able to make it work. It looks like you're in an apartment or a house, but it's actually your office, right?
Yeah, it's my office. So we're in Vancouver on Granville Island. And, just with the way, I guess, working from the office, working from home has evolved over the last year, especially, we've converted our space into a collaborative space.
Okay.
So it's like a drop-in office for anybody who wants to come by and work and connect.
Yeah.
We're otherwise remote.
Yeah. Well, it's really cool. I see lots of timber and lots of lights and exposed pipes. I think it's really, really a cool space. So let me tell you why I've actually asked you for this conversation. So here's my recollection of you is that when we were young, like 13, 14, 15 years old, I remember you from those days. You were one of those guys that always had the really trendy glasses and trendy hair. And we would end up at kind of community events together. We'd see each other, social events. We always had these like very short conversations, but for some reason, these short conversations stuck with me. Even if what we were talking about, I don't really remember, but they stuck with me. And then over the course of our lives, you went off and worked internationally. Over the course of our lives, even more recently in the last 7 years, it would be the same thing. Like I'd see you at an event, we'd connect with you. It felt like that experience when we were teenagers, but then we wouldn't really have deeper conversations. We would just have these moments of connection. And this is going to sound like a relationship kind of thing, but I always felt like there was something there. And I thought, let's have a conversation and see, let's explore and see what's the connection.
It's like living in Paris and saying, yeah, the Eiffel Tower's there. I can go see it anytime I want.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But we're actually going to visit now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I thought we'd do here. No real specific agenda, but you have done some very interesting things. And so I want to dive into a little bit of that with what you're doing. So why don't we just start with, just let me know what it is that you are doing now. What's your role? What's the company?
So I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Plastic Bank. So we are a social entrepreneurship focused on stopping ocean plastic. Okay. So we're a business that does good. We're for profit, and we believe that that is, a critical component in creating a sustainable solution for the world's plastic problem. And our business model is twofold. On the first hand, we are building ethical recycling ecosystems in vulnerable coastal communities around the world.
Wow.
Right? So the UN has developed their sustainable development goals to help qualify what is required to create a civil and just society. Yeah. There's 17 of them, and they've identified poverty as the very first goal. Right? And what they've noticed is that there's a correlation between poverty or poverty line and the levels of pollution and infrastructure to mitigate pollution, right? So we're using that to help identify these vulnerable geographies to focus on. And we go in there and we incentivize collection. Okay. And we're starting with plastic because that's the first critical material, but we really are scalable to all materials. And there's a commodity price with a global index that defines the price of a material. So anybody can collect it through an informal infrastructure. They can bring it into a depot and they get their money back.
Mm-hmm.
And that the value they get is pegged to a global index.
Hmm.
And it's supply and demand, right? It's highly
Mm-hmm.
volatile, changes every day, and it gets posted in the morning. They go run off and collect the most valuable price. For someone who's living below the poverty line, $1 or $2 a day, it's very hard to plan your life when every single meal is in question because
Yeah.
of the volatility of your income stream, right?
Yeah.
So what we have done is we've created a fixed fiat-backed premium that is added on top of their collection.
So let's pause here for a second and define that a little bit for the listeners. A
Okay.
fixed fiat. Well, actually, I'll just be honest. Define it for me, and I'm sure many of my listeners as well.
Okay. So
Define fiat backed for me.
okay, it's basically, so let's say you're collecting plastic,
Yeah.
PET, like a plastic water bottle,
Yeah.
and that price changes every day. The price is X, X minus one, X minus two. It's variable. We want to give you financial certainty. So in
Yeah.
addition to that variable price, there is a fixed amount that you will always get,
Yeah.
no matter what. So Shaquille, no matter what, you're guaranteed to get an extra X plus two.
Yeah.
Okay. And the way we guarantee it is we peg it to the US dollar.
Okay.
Okay. And we pay it as a digital token. We don't pay it in currency.
Okay.
And that token always retains that dollar value no matter what. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So that now gives you financial certainty.
Yeah.
So when you're making $1 or $2 a day, and now you have this certainty, you can start looking towards your next week and other things you can do, basic family necessities that we take for granted, Wi-Fi, health insurance, micro lending, education.
Yeah.
The world starts to open up and you are lifting these people out of poverty. In fact, we are seeing that our collectors on average have an income increase of 40%.
Wow.
Right? 40%. That's crazy, right? You literally are changing people's lives through plastic, right? So I mean, the phrase that
and solving a very serious problem in the world.
From what was once waste now has worth. Imagine taking out $100 loan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like 2 to 3 months salary.
Yeah.
And you pay the entire loan back with plastic.
Yeah. Wow.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
We literally are changing what currency looks like. And then we're working with local digital.
So hey, can we pause there for a second? So I'm just imagining this happening is that you're essentially you will loan. What do you call your community? Are they members? Are they
members.
Okay?
Members.
So for example, you could loan a community member $100, and through their hard work and effort and all of that, have some security to know that they will be able to pay you back because they know where all the plastic is in their coastal community.
Yes.
They can take the $100, use it to invest in their life, whatever it may be, kids' school, and then they pay you back in collection of plastic models.
We're doing that for loans. We're doing it for micro insurance. So accident insurance for an entire family. We're working with a global provider of micro insurance to underwrite all this. The monthly cost is 3 cents.
Wow.
For an entire family. The monthly cost for life insurance, so 5 times annual salary, is 30 cents. It's a marginal cost.
Yeah.
They just want access. So in addition to the environmental impact, we're creating social and economic impact. So as part of this, we're reframing what we are calling sustainability into generation. There's this concept called the regenerative society, which says that if you truly want to make a difference, you have to hit environmental, social, and economic goals. Environment is not enough. So I guess the big idea here is reframing how we look at plastic, the value. If every plastic bottle had a $5 deposit on it, no one would throw them away, which is essentially what we're doing, right? So that's the first half of our model, right?
Yeah.
And it's working. You know, we have 20,000 collectors. We have 320 branches across 5 countries. We're in Egypt, Indonesia, the Philippines, Brazil, and Haiti. And in the back half of this year, we're going into Tanzania, Cameroon, Thailand. We have Kenya and Nigeria in scope. And that's just this year. Okay. We just celebrated the 1 billionth bottle collected. Now, just for perspective, okay, if you collected 1 bottle a second, it would take you 32 years to collect 1 billion bottles.
Yeah.
So we've already hit 1 billion. We're on track to hit the next billion by the end of this year. Like we're accelerating at a crazy pace. But that's just the collection side, right? And
Yeah.
improving lives in these communities. We then work with local processors to clean, segregate, and process this material. And
Yeah.
then we reintegrate this back into the global supply chain. So this is what is known as the circular economy, where
Yeah.
you're constantly reusing the material. So
Yeah.
right now, as a consumer, when you buy a plastic bottle of shampoo, it's made out of recycled PET,
Yeah.
potentially, right?
Yeah.
And then after you use it, you can recycle it. We're picking it up on the other end and bringing it back in. But
Huh.
what we do is we brand our PET as social plastic. Okay.
Yeah.
Social plastic, because we want to recognize the environmental, social, and economic benefits that come about.
Hmm.
So now when you buy a bottle of Windex,
Yeah.
okay, in North America, it's made out of 100% social plastic. You know, in addition to being able to clean your windows, this bottle is made out of recycled ocean-bound plastic, and it's also putting food on the table and putting kids through school, et cetera, et cetera.
Amazing.
So consumers can participate,
Yeah.
right? Just by voting at the shelf and doing what you are already doing. And, you know, we're working with hundreds of companies already to integrate social plastic. It will be the fair trade of materials.
Wow. That is
Right?
such an amazing,
And
amazing story.
applications like, you know, Hugo Boss has put social plastic thread into their clothing. And, you know, when you buy berries, the punnets that you get the berries in, those are out of social plastic. And
Yeah.
shampoo and diapers and, you know, car seats. We're working with global car companies to convert all their seat backs and carpets into recycled plastic. Because
Hmm.
you can, and guess what? You don't even notice the difference. So that's the second part of our movie.
I'm just imagining this, just that one example of car seats and thread in clothing. So you have people buying these products. They can afford cars and nice cars. They can afford, you said Hugo Boss
Yeah,
clothing.
yeah,
And part of the money from that is going not as charity,
yeah.
but basically as raw material sourcing costs to a coastal fisherman living, for example, let's say in Mozambique.
Right.
Amazing.
70 cents on every dollar gets reinvested back into the communities.
That's amazing. And
70
you know
cents.
that I use that example, it hits home because though I don't know if I've told the story in this podcast, but just had a very impactful experience when I was in Mozambique in Cabo Delgado, and I met a young, as for my previous work that you know, I worked with a Gun Foundation. I met this poor fisherman that had transformed his life, and he learned a bunch of things about business and farming and all that. But it resonates for me because one of the things he did as an entrepreneur is he convinced everybody in the community to start collecting their garbage and their plastic and piling it up into the central place in the village. And the foundation helped him learn how to, a certain type of bugs will process the garbage in a way to turn it into something usable. But he would also take the plastics and set those aside. I didn't know at the time. I didn't really, you were in that plastic bank at the time, know what was happening. But now I'm connecting the dots because I know a real person that was doing that, collecting plastic, mobilizing his community to bring the plastic. And now I understand what the impact is of
So
that action.
let me add something to this. So this is what we call the gig economy,
Yeah, right,
right?
right.
Short-term contract jobs. And
Yeah,
there's such an exponential opportunity to unleash here. You know, of our 20,000 collectors, they're not full-time. They're all
right,
part-time. They're
right.
supplementing income. It could
Yeah,
be short-term, temporary, and it's creating value. And we're leveraging talent that way. One really interesting program that we're working on is with the Catholic Church of
mm-hmm,
all places, right? So,
mm-hmm.
you know, there are over 1 billion Catholics in the world. And the Pope has written a strategic paper called Laudata Si that outlines strategic direction for the church for the next 7 years. He recognizes that, you know, religion aside, faith also includes community and
Of
environment.
course. Yeah,
All faiths do,
yeah,
by the way,
yeah.
right? So we're doing pilots in Brazil right now where we are working with parishes to be collection points. So as people come into the community center,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's for activities or social or religious, they're bringing their household plastic with them,
Hmm.
right? So the church becomes that focal point, which it already is in the community.
Anyway, sure.
And then that money they collect gets redistributed back to the community,
Yeah,
right?
amazing.
And we're reapplying that into Egypt now, in Cairo, with the local Ummah there as well. Because this model, it's not faith-based, it's community-based.
For sure. For
right?
sure. Yeah. Oh, I love it. It's just okay. We could go on and we will come back to this because I'm really interested in, from just a business perspective and a leadership perspective, some of the things you've experienced and are learning in this organization, how you found it, all that stuff. We'll get to it. But, this is a bit of a time machine podcast. So we're going to go back in time for a moment. And I want to ask you, I don't know, we must have been 12, 13, 14 in those years. Very different time for childhood than it is for our kids now. And I know you have 2 kids. Yes?
I have 3.
3. Oh, of course. Of course. You have 3 kids. Tell us about the family. You have to don't give us names, but you can tell us about your family.
Great. One solid in the middle teenager, one preteen, and one diva who runs the house. So
amazing.
It's fun time.
That's great. So now go back to when you were their age. Was there any kind of experiences that you can reflect or call upon that were a little bit defining moments or maybe even predictors for what you would end up doing with your career?
Yeah. So there are 2. So look, I went, as you know, I went to a private school my entire life.
Yeah.
And I was conditioned to believe that there were only 2 career choices, lawyer or doctor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not a science guy at all.
Yeah.
So medicine was never going to be an option. Law was in my family, but I wanted to be a lawyer because of the title, but I was not interested in the law. So I really had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
But there are 2 moments that I vividly recollect that I know have imprinted the way I think, right?
Yeah.
The first is, I remember as a kid, being new to Canada, both of my parents were working all the time, right? Trying to make ends meet. So I used to keep busy at home, going through the cabinets and reading all these products and labels. And I would, who is writing these instructions? Rinse, lather, repeat. What does that mean? I was such a geek. Mr. Clean and Ivory Soap and Javex bleach, and I read everything, right? While brushing my teeth, I'm reading the toothpaste label, like who is writing this text and why? I always had those questions, right? And the second, and I'll tie that back into what that meant in a second. The second defining moment was, the weekly grocery shop with my parents. So we lived in the North Shore of Vancouver, and we would go to this shopping mall called Park Royal. And there was a grocery store there called Woodward's. And every Saturday, we'd go to Woodward's. My mom would do the shop, and my dad would say, I'm just going to wait in the mall. I'm going to sit on a bench. And I'd say, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm just going to watch people. And I was like, but how boring is that? What do you mean you're going to watch people? And he said, you can learn a lot from observing people. And that's all he would say, right? And I never really understood what that meant until I became a teenager.
Yeah.
And do you remember on Robson, Earl's on Top?
For sure. Right? Of course.
In the mid 80s, it was like the place, huge lineups. And they had this patio outside with chairs, and you would sit and wait, right? No one had phones.
Yeah.
You just sit and wait. And my friends and I would sit and wait, and we'd watch people. And we played this game where we would try to act out what people were thinking in their heads as they would walk by.
Wasn't there like didn't like late night comedy shows end up doing that at some point?
Right? I'm sure.
Yeah.
And we thought we were the funniest guys in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I realized in hindsight is all of these 3 moments were all about consumer behavior, understanding why people do what they do. Okay? Now, if I fast forward, right? So I'm in business school. I'm doing an internship at Procter & Gamble in France. And the very first project I am given is to write the label for Camay soap.
Oh, really?
And I'm thinking, oh my God, my grandmother is going to be thrilled because it's Camay.
Yeah.
That's like her precious Camay. And I'm the guy writing the label. What am I going to write?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my gosh, what a full circle moment.
The very first day. And I remember, as part of the training, they sent me to this class on basically how to write 1-page memos. And there was a quote that I learned there that stuck with me ever since. And it's a quote from Leo Burnett. Now, Leo Burnett is one of the founders of modern advertising out of
Yeah.
Chicago. He helped create McDonald's. And he had this quote: consumers don't say what they mean. They don't mean what they think. They don't think what they feel. They don't feel what they need. And the goal of a marketer is to translate what they're saying to what they really need.
Huh.
Okay. No one asked for a microwave.
Right. Right.
They asked for a quicker way to heat up the food.
Right.
Then the marketers and the R&D people say, well, what does that mean? Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I tie it all back, those defining moments of consumer behavior and observing people taught me to understand people. And that's what I do today. My job is to represent our consumer. I wear
Okay.
the hat. I refer to my mother as my benchmark. How would
Yeah.
my mother react? How would I explain it to her? What would get her to notice, think, feel, or do differently? Because if I can solve for her, I've
Yes.
won. And
Yes.
again, it's my illustrative mother, right?
Yes. 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 Yes.
That's really changed the way I think.
So that's amazing. I just feel compelled because as you're talking, like I am a ridiculous Mad Men fan. I'm sure I bet you are too, just based on the way you're talking. I've probably seen every episode 6 times, well, to be honest, maybe 10 times each episode. And I remember the main character, Don Draper, saying something once, which was, what sells things is you feeling something.
Yeah.
And so when you're describing the idea of you feeling that connection with your mom, feeling the connection with Camay soap and your grandmother, and the connection between those experiences, what you're feeling now, and you channeling that into the marketing design, the copy, the whatever it is a really powerful reminder of the importance of our life experiences and what we do.
I mean, here's an example, because look, from the better part of my career, I've worked on commodities, right? Soap, diaper, shampoo, toilet cleaner, stuff that everybody uses and all household brands, but no one thinks about this stuff, right? The running joke at our household was everybody who used to come and visit us when we lived in Europe, I converted every single person to Metamucil, whether or not they thought they did, right? And everyone's like, I don't have a problem. I don't need this. And every person left with a tub and they'd call me back, this has changed my life.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not about the functional need, right?
Yeah.
Because anyone can clean your clothes or make your teeth clean or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it's how you feel. It's how you feel. It's why you buy, a bottle of Evian versus drinking out of the tap.
Yeah.
Evian comes from the tap, by the way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is what branding is about. It's how can I make you feel differently?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great connect the dots for me, and just so validating because of the area I believe in the connection of past and present and future. So just give us the quick summary. So you ended up in marketing, your internship, working on Camay. Can you take us from there to where you are now? What was the journey along the way?
So I fell into marketing. I didn't know it was marketing that I wanted. I was just really obsessed with consumers and consumer behavior. And I thought, maybe it was research that I needed to go into. And I was introduced to Procter & Gamble through my business school through a career fair where I was the wingman for my best friend who wanted to apply. And I was just standing there saying, I don't speak French. I was in France. I don't speak French very well. So I need to wait a bit of time. And just through chatting, they said, you really need to apply and we'll figure out the right role. And they put me into marketing because they said, you're already thinking like your consumer. Right? We can teach you the business stuff. It's very hard to get you to think of being in someone else's shoes. Right? And you've done that all your life, just out of, interest. So I started out in marketing and I worked all across Europe in most consumer categories, right? So laundry, cleaning, baby care, oral care, healthcare. I did snacks. I launched Pringles all across Scandinavia.
Oh, wow.
Funnest working with MTV, coolest thing. But, through that Pringles experience, I would present business case. I would lecture at business schools in Scandinavia regularly, just on how to make advertising and consumer insights and all that.
Yeah.
And I was presenting in Norway, and normally you get a standing ovation. All the business schools love you because you're P&G.
Yeah.
And there was silence after this presentation. And I was like, what, did I do something wrong? Did I offend people? Is it a language thing? And a girl put up her hand and she said, how dare you? And I said, what? I'm sorry, I don't understand. What did I miss? And she said, you're selling this product to kids that they don't need, and you're creating the wrong expectation. You need to be more responsible.
Hmm.
And it hit me because I was this, late 20s cool
Sure.
guy having literally the coolest job in the world.
Yeah.
And she literally reset everything for me.
Hmm.
And it was like I literally went
Wow.
back to Stockholm and told my general manager, I need another job. I
Hmm.
can't do this. She's absolutely right. What on earth? How are we improving anybody's life by making them eat more Pringles? And he said, well, we're making them happy. And I said, BS. I'm not spending all this time over here to make you happy. I'm doing this to make a difference in your life. I fundamentally believe that.
Right.
I want to be able to go home and, hand on heart, look at my kids and said, this is the difference I made in someone's life today.
Yeah.
It can't be about potato chips.
Yeah.
And that's where I discovered healthcare. Right.
Huh.
And
Would you mind? I just want to sit there for a moment because the way you told the story and that university student in the audience, by making a comment, reframed everything all your assumptions about what you were doing, how you looked at yourself, and what your purpose was in that moment. So obviously you had these thoughts, but she
yeah.
sparked something in you. She sparked something in you that really took you in a different direction.
I mean, literally what she was saying is if your company is this great and you have the ability to raise awareness and influence decisions, could you imagine if you applied that to something that really made a difference, change you could make? That's what she was saying. Now I'm 28.
Yeah.
He was probably 21, 22.
Yeah.
Middle of nowhere, and this aha moment, right? It completely changed my perspective.
Yeah. Wow.
Right? And growing up in our community, the duty and the responsibility we have with development and lifting up, it's always been there. I'm not the person who's going to the communities to build.
Yeah.
I've done that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not the value I add, right? But it helped me rechannel. So being in P&G, I said, let me at least try this with healthcare.
Yeah.
Right. And I was part of a team that helped reframe consumer healthcare into the wellness category. Because we said, look, people who are sick already know they're sick.
Yeah.
Well, there's no use or no value in reminding them that they feel sick.
Yeah.
How about we show them how they can get well and stay well? Right. And that led me to Johnson & Johnson, where I spent 10 years in diabetes. Right. And when I joined J&J, they said, look, we sell blood glucose testing. Why do you want to join this? And I said, because you're looking at it the wrong way. Your consumers are exactly the same as anybody who doesn't have diabetes. They have the same hopes and dreams and aspirations. And you are continuously talking to them as if they're sick. Why don't you talk to them as if they're people?
Yeah.
And show how you fit into their lives and can help them. And I eventually became the CMO for their diabetes group globally, and that was my mission, was reframing the stigma of diabetes.
Right? Amazing.
And again, channeling. And then, after doing that for 10 years, it led me to Plastic Bank, because I thought, okay, I'm doing all of this just on consumer goods. Can I apply it to something even bigger, more purposeful, even say like a legacy kind of endeavor?
Yeah.
And I was introduced to David Katz from the Plastic Bank, and we started talking, and it was literally over a year that we started framing up, how could I help?
Yeah.
Right. And what's great about my role now is I'm the bridge back to the P&Gs and the J&Js, helping their brands get more purpose. Right. So one of the amazing projects that we just worked on working with P&G, they just launched a shaving brand through Gillette in the US called Planet Kind.
Okay.
And Planet Kind recognizes that a couple of things. One is there are already 1 million razors out there. The world does not need another razor.
Yeah.
They also recognize that shaving is a daily behavior.
Yeah.
And if we can influence that behavior and add purpose, people can make a difference just by doing what they're already doing.
Yeah.
So they created this brand called Planet Kind. Everything is made out of fully recycled materials. Everything is fully recyclable. And every purchase on top also has a commitment to stopping ocean plastic. Okay. So just by doing what you're already doing, you have a multiplier effect of change.
Yeah.
Right. So the idea is every time you shave,
Yeah.
you're stopping ocean plastic. And they've made it part of their value proposition. It's not a promotion. That's the brand.
Yeah.
And they're learning to see how can they shape behavior and drive that change. And I'm able to participate in that because of the evolution of what I've, been able to experience over the last 30 years.
Yeah. Wow. So I want to ask a bit of a question, because when you described how the business works and the impact earlier, Plastic Bank, obviously it sounds incredible, amazing. It also sounds, maybe that's because you're a marketer, you made it sound easy. You made it sound easy, right? And we're talking about leading organizations in a global world and complex issues and diversity in the participants in the entire value chain. You're talking about car manufacturers all the way to the fishermen in a coastal town. How does this work? Yeah.
No, sorry. Stephen Covey's got his 5 E's of leadership, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Envision, engage, energize, enable, and execute.
Okay.
And look, leadership is about balancing all these. You don't have to be an expert in all of them, but is understanding where your strengths are in those. My strength is in envisioning and energizing.
Yeah.
Okay. I will get you to feel where we want to go.
Yeah.
So I have to make it feel easy. I have to make you believe we can do this and want to be part of it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's all envisioning. We can do it. Can you imagine a world where you can take a loan and pay for it in plastic?
Yeah.
Let's go figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So tell me what's really hard about it. Like underneath the surface, what's the biggest challenge in building this organization? And what does it take for somebody, the founder, what does it take for him to have started this thing? What does it take for the people working with you to make this happen? I
think there are a few things, right? The first one I would say is reframing the conversation from cost to value. So it's very, in our industry, everyone recognizes the problem of ocean plastic, right? And, working with the UN and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, there is a global commitment amongst manufacturers to reduce their use of virgin plastic over the next 5 years. In fact, the list of participants, there's over 450 CPG companies. They're 16 times oversubscribed the current supply in plastic. There's more demand than we know what to do with. The problem is there's no financially sustainable way to go and do something about it, right? So everyone wants it. We don't know what to do about it. Now we have a solution. So the first part is reframing it from cost to value. It will take investment to build up the infrastructure and the supply chain capacity to make this happen.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not about the cost of doing it. It's about the value that is returned afterwards.
Right.
Right. So who do you talk to in an organization? Is it procurement who is buying the material? They only look at cost. Is it R&D? They only look at technical specifications. Is it marketing? Right. They just want to know that they can sell more products afterwards. Is it the PR or the CSR guys? Well, they just want the story. The reality is it's an enterprise play. This is the second one. Yeah. It's an enterprise play. Everyone in the organization needs to buy in, believe, and engage.
Yes.
Not one person.
Totally get it.
Okay. So it's a long sell. Impact programs, collection, that's easy. But to integrate a new material into the supply chain, and this, it takes a long time. It takes 12 to 18 months for one SKU.
Yeah.
Right? Now imagine you're going to take over an entire portfolio. That's only one brand. Look how many brands that are out there.
Yeah.
Right. It's a big effect, but the value that is returned is immeasurable.
Yeah.
Right. That's the second one. And the third is, I'm just going to stop at 3. Recycling and sustainability has become really trendy. Everyone wants to do it because it's the cool thing to do. Let's work on this. We really want to, the people we engage with best are the people who are doing this because they believe in it. Yeah. This is purpose driven.
Yeah.
It's not tick the box on the CV. Those people fail because they have the wrong mindset from the beginning.
It's got to be purpose driven. That's got to be, what am I doing here? What am I giving back?
Right.
Why do we exist in the first place?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's all about values and purpose and meaning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes back to childhood. You asked the question, what was the defining moment in childhood that brought you here today?
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you then, I mean, obviously you have colleagues. How do you go about identifying who you're going to bring on the team when you need a combination of, obviously you need hard, technical, real functional skills, and you need purpose.
Right.
What does it look like to build a team of people when your criteria, those are kind of your two main criteria? I'm sure there's others, but what does it look like to build your
Great
team out?
observation. I mean, technically, look, there's a lot of talent out in the world,
Yeah.
right? And we are very fortunate that we have, this ever-growing list of people who just want to volunteer their talent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it comes down to meaning and values fit.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually run through multi-functional reviews with candidates
Mm-hmm.
to understand why.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, this is another marketing thing I've learned over the years is
Yeah.
your natural human tendency is to execute.
Right.
What?
Yeah.
And my tendency is to ask, well, why?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why do we need to do this? You can do the what. You can figure out if it's blue or green or big or square. I want to know why. That's the behavior part, right?
Yeah.
So I apply that to interviewing candidates. Why do you want to work here? Why plastic? And I ask that question probably 20 times during an interview. But okay, so tie that to why? Because it's not about the money. It's not about the coolness, right? It's not about, you're not going to go and clean up the mangroves. Like, why do you need to be here?
Yeah.
What in your life set you up to do this?
Yeah.
Right? Because there's no obvious profile there. I mean, one of our frustrations is we haven't figured out the model to qualify the right candidate, because it can be anything. Our global materials expert is a urologist from the Ukraine. Trained as a urologist, right? But for the last 20 years, he said, that's not the right thing for me to do in my life. And he went and learned all about plastics, and he's one of the leading global experts in plastic recycling, in materials management.
Amazing.
He's a urologist. Like, it's so hard to predict what brings people to where they are. I mean, look, my first degree was in film. Did I ever think I was
I didn't know that. I could totally see that. My memory of who you were at the time, you struck me as a very creative person. And so I could see that. Yeah, I've found everything you said so not only fascinating, interesting, and validating for the reason I felt there was a connection all these years, but also so instructive. And so as we bring our conversation to close here, I'm wondering if there's any thoughts you have, one or two thoughts around what do you think leaders need to be thinking about doing now in the face of all the things we're facing in the world? Too many to list. I'll let you be the decider of what's the thing that resonates for you. What would be your advice to leaders today?
I think for me, the two big ones that are highly prevalent, relevant for me right now are understanding the why for anything before I go and do it. That helps me prioritize, helps me focus. And the second one is really being clear on what our purpose is. There's a lot of things we could do, but what should we do? What is our core competency where we can uniquely make a difference and drive growth? Look, ultimately business is about growth, right?
Yeah.
So it all comes, what is going to drive that growth, that relevance, that engagement with our consumers or our customers?
Yeah.
What can we uniquely do? And where do we need to be? So it's those two.
Yeah, that's cool. Great advice. Where can people find you or Plastic Bank? More information, where should they go?
Sure. So our URL is plasticbank.com.
Oh, that's easy.
It's super easy. And you can reach me on Saleem@plasticbank.com.
Very cool. Oh, giving out your email address. And I assume you're on LinkedIn if people want to check it. Awesome. Awesome. Well, that is really great. And just thank you for making the time. And I also hope, and it takes investment and commitment, this podcast is not the last time we'll connect now that we've learned more. Well, I've learned more about you. Maybe we'll do the reverse the next time. And I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Very much. I give you best to your family. And it looks like things are getting better. I know in Vancouver, things are starting to loosen up now. So let's go back. One of the things I'm really front and center in my mind right now is that, things are getting better. We're going back, but we're not necessarily going back to the way things were. We're going to something new.
Going forward. We're going forward.
Right? Yeah, we're going forward to something new. So awesome. Well, thanks very much. Take care and have a fantastic day.
Cheers.
Well, that conversation was worth the wait. Lots of great things to take away from this conversation with Saleem. First of all, I found it pretty cool how his company is proving that you can do the right thing for the environment, for livelihoods of marginalized people living in poverty, while meeting the demands for high-end consumer products. It certainly gives you hope of what is possible when creative, intelligent, and influential business people put their intentions on difficult problems. He connected 3 childhood and adolescent moments to his chosen profession. He talked about how he was able to read packaging when he was younger, learned about people watching from his dad, and then played the voiceover game with his buddies while waiting in line at restaurants. All these experiences, he was able to connect to his interest in consumer behavior, which is basically the seeds that were planted for his career in marketing. And he was able to take advantage of the opportunity for Procter & Gamble when it came because of those seeds. He talked about that young woman in the university class, not much younger than Saleem at the time. He was on top of the world working at Procter & Gamble, and she asked him a question that made him really look at the link between his values and his actions. The reflection of the question she asked him sparked him to think about his career and shifting from marketing consumer goods, in this case potato chips, to healthcare. And then that's eventually led him to social impact, reducing ocean plastic and improving livelihoods. I love that he can connect the dots between all of these life experiences and link them to his values and purpose. It really is interesting how he was able to know his talents. He described his talents as the ability to envision a better future and then energize other people to mobilize the time, money, and resources to make that better future happen. I particularly found his advice about building a team of people really meaningful. He described how we have a natural human tendency to execute, to take action, but he has figured out that the power before taking action is in thinking about the why behind what you're doing. And he applies that to interviewing and hiring people. He figured out that if he can get an accurate assessment of why someone wants to join their company, and he can build the connection between that why and how it aligns with the values of the organizations, he is more likely to get the right fit. Really great advice. Thank you, Saleem, and I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Have a great day. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, or share it. I want to say thank you to one of my favorite bands, Late Night Conversations, for sharing their song Chaos with me and letting me use it in this episode. You can learn more about them on Instagram at LNC Connected. And here's more of their song Chaos to take you out.
Far behind my eyes, mediation, suffocation, it'll break me. Information in disguise. But when your eyes finally found mine, you were there, but I'm defined by the chaos in my mind. I believe what I perceive is a weave tearing at the seams, and I wonder what's behind. And my ears are bleeding, and the reason is in the logic of the season, taking the pleasing from my soul and leaving me to die. And I feel the lacing, LNC like racing, unstationary.